you do such an amazing job of bringing us back to the truth of the essence inside, but you also have some amazing tools in all of that. I wanted to give you a moment if you wanted to respond to that, and then I wanted to ask you another question. So yeah, toss it back to you.
Thank you, Marie. And it is lovely having this exchange because, as you say, it's a lovely energy exchange, and one thought prompts another one. And the beautiful thing about the thoughts that we are having and discussing is that they're not on the level of thoughts. They're thoughts that are pointing to something that's so much more precious and beautiful. So the first thing I want to pick up on is your use of the word sacred. And I want to say to all your listeners, don't ever get tricked into identifying with things in the world around you as being sacred. They're not what's sacred. You are what's sacred. You don't need to add anything sacred to you. You don't need to put anything on your wall to be, I'm going to look to this thing as being sacred. It's a pale shadow of sacredness compared with what you are. And people have said in the past, sacredness is within you. The kingdom of God is within you. And then people have told stories about these people, and they've said, look, here's a sacred place where this person spoke, and here's a sacred place where we've written about some of the things that they said. And we get so distracted and tricked into running around here and there, trying to find, how can I add some sacredness to my life, and how can I be reverent towards those things that are sacred? And oh, it's such an endless merry-go-round. You are what is sacred. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to earn anything or deserve anything. It's all there, you. Now, the other thing, Marie, I want to pick up on what you said, I just can't remember the exact word, but it was about some sort of quality of feeling. I can't remember exactly what.
Buoyancy?
Yes, thank you. That was it. Now, here's what I wanted to say about that. When I talk about the essence of you as being, and the essence of me as being this formless awareness, it is formless in the sense that it's more subtle than the mind and the body. But it's not absolutely formless. It has qualities. They're very subtle, and we don't want to go into defining them and categorizing them and listing them too much, because then we're inviting the mind in and we lose those qualities that we're feeling are so precious.
Right? Yes.
But one of those qualities of presence, of the essence of who I am, is buoyancy. One of those qualities that might bubble up a little bit more as a different flavor sometimes might be contentedness. Another one might be lovingness. Another one might be playfulness. And these are who you are. They're who I am. And what you might be noticing, some of your listeners, Marie, might be noticing, these are the qualities that we often say are characteristic of little children.
Yes. I was just feeling that when you were talking, the inner child, right?
Yeah. They are characteristic of little children, because little children, in the main, have not yet put a blanket over that through the conditioning that they've taken on. They haven't lost that, but they gradually do, sooner or later, some sooner, some later, and we begin to experience life very differently, and we lose touch, again, in varying degrees, but most people, a lot, we lose touch with those very subtle qualities of life and who we are. But they don't ever get ultimately lost, because they are who we are. Again, just to give a caution around conceptualizing, and again, we're here using concepts, and they can be helpful, but we just want to be so cautious that they don't become a tyrant at the same, inadvertently. So this notion of the inner child, I would say to your listeners, just be cautious not to segment a part of yourself and think of it as being, here's my inner child here, and I'm going to have a talk with my inner child and encourage them to come forward and be over here. All this is conceptual stuff. All this is really mind games, because the essence of you is wholeness, oneness, beyond categorizing and chopping and dicing. So there is no inner child actually as a separate entity, as it were. There's these qualities that are childlike, but they're not lost. They are who you are. We just notice them more in our childhood, and we notice them more in children around us than we tend to in our everyday life. But those beautiful qualities are part of the essence of who we are. So again, we could say that's me, rather than that's this defined categorization or conceptualized part of me. There's only one you. And even this notion we touched on before quite a few times, I suppose, you know, the notion of a conceptual identity or a self-image or an egoic sense of self. It ultimately is not a separate entity. It often seems like that. It often feels like that. It often seems to be functioning like that. But ultimately, it isn't an entity. There's only one entity, and that's you.
It's so beautiful.